All right, hello. We are doing, let's see, we're doing number 12 right now. This is Algebra 2 with Mr. Brown, number 12, marking period 4. So what I just do is I go ahead and I grab the copy, little snippets of the problems, and I paste them in my answer sheet just so I don't have to bounce back and forth. So let me get started. Let me do like 1 and 2, and I'll do 6 or something, and then we'll be done, and then you do the rest. All right, so we have to simplify these things. So let's think about this. I've got see these two parentheses. These parentheses say multiply these two expressions to each other. So just like I showed in the last video, I have to multiply each piece of this. Let me see if I can get this to kind of show you kind of how this goes. I'm going to have to take this piece, this first piece of the expression. I use my mouse because the pencil was acting funny for me a moment ago. I'm going to multiply it by that. And then I'm going to go ahead and multiply it again by this. And then once I get that part done, I'm going to go ahead and take this part of the expression and then multiply it by this part and then multiply it by this part. All right. So I need to make four calculations here in order to figure out what's going to happen. Since I do have a little bit of writing space, should I show it to you in pen? I don't know. I'm conflicted. I'm feeling conflicted. I really like doing things on paper, but then I'm going to have to redo it anyway. So maybe I shouldn't do it that way. I don't know. Okay, -4. Looks like I'm doing it. Looks like I've decided to go ahead and multiply this. Multiply -2 radical 5. Okay, what is that? Well, I take what's outside the coefficients, I multiply those. -4 times -2 is +8. All right, and then radical 5 times radical 5, technically, that's going to give me radical 25. And then I hope that you know something about radical 25. Hopefully you know when you multiply two radicals of the same number, you're going to get a number which is actually a perfect square. 25 is one of those special numbers, which is a perfect square. And radical 25, or the square root of 25, is equal to 5. So really what I have here is 8 times 5, and 8 times 5 is 40. All right, so that's my first thing I'm going to have to add here, 40. Yeah, don't make fun of my writing. Don't make fun of my writing. It'll make me cry. Okay. Then I'm going to do -4 times radical 5 times -3 times radical 7. All right, -4 times radical 5. All right, where am I going? Times -3 times radical 7. All right, so now I'm taking the coefficients and multiplying those together. 4 times 3 is 12. They're both negative, so I get a positive 12. And then radical 5 times radical 7 will give me a radical 35. All right, so 12 times radical 35 ain't much I can do with that. That's just going to go over here. I might be able to combine things later, but right now I'm just keeping them where they are. Oh, interesting. I think I must have messed with a setting in here somewhere. Anyway, oh, 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 oh. All right. Oh no! I got rid of everything. That makes me very, very sad. Very sad. Oh no. Okay. I'm so sorry. What did I have? I had -8 times 5, which would be -20 over here. -20. I need to reset my board, I think. It's giving me a problem. And then -4 times radical 5 times, that's going to be positive 12 times positive 12 times radical 35. It's giving me a lot of problems. I don't know why it's giving me. Usually this is so nice to write on, this little board thingy I've got here. Usually it's so nice. Now I got to take care of this piece. All right, I got to multiply there. I got to multiply it there. All right, two more calculations. So -7 radical 7 times -2 times radical 5, and then -7 radical 7 times radical 3. 3 radical 7. Okay, let's do this. Take the coefficients, negative 7 and negative 2, that's a 14, and I get a positive 14 because those are both negative. Then 7 times 5 is radical 35. And then 7 times 3 is 21, and it's going to be a positive 21 because they're both negative. That makes life easier. And then I'm going to get radical 49, and I'm hoping that some of you are like, wait a minute. I know something about this radical 49 deal. All right, that's a perfect square, right? I took radical 7 times radical 7. 7 times 7 is 49. The square root, or radical 49, is just the same thing as 7. So really what I have here is 21 times 7. And oh my gosh, I can probably do that in my head, but I don't like it. It's going to be a 7 and a 14, so 147. That hurts my brain. Okay, so I got plus 14, radical 35. I'm really regretting bringing up the board. I'm just going to have to do it in one line from now on. Plus 147. And then I combine what I can combine, right? I can take these two and combine them to be positive 127, right? I just subtracted 20 from the 147, so I got rid of that. I get rid of that, and then I can combine these two things. They're under the same radical, so I can add them. 12 plus 14 is going to be 26 radical 35, and then I'm looking for like any simplifications, any perfect squares in there. I don't see any. I think I'm done. All right, let me put this pad everything away, and I'm gonna if I unplug that thing, and I'll plug it in later. Maybe it'll reset whatever setting that made it screwy. Okay, let me do this in one line because that's how you're going to have to do it. That's why I question whether I should do that in one line right from the very beginning, because you'll have to do it this way. Let me insert my special character. Insert special character, square root, square. Just saying it is not enough, Mr. Soul. You need to actually be able to type out the whole word, or at least part of the word. Okay, there I am. And now I'm going to kind of select this, do Control C, and now I can Control V and paste it whenever I want a radical sign in the future. All right, so negative 4, radical 5. I'm going to multiply that by negative 2, or Control V, radical 5. I'm going to find out what that equals. And I'm going to do negative 4, radical 5, and I'm going to multiply that. And this multiply symbol I'm using here is Shift 8, gives me the asterisk. Negative 3 times radical 7. All right, now I'm going to go over to the negative 7 times radical 7, over to the negative 2, radical 5, so negative 7, radical 7, times negative 2, radical 5. I'll find out what that equals in a minute. And then last but not least, negative 7, radical 7, times negative 3, radical 7. Okay, we already did this, so we already know how it's going to turn out. But I'm just demonstrating how I would do it if I was doing it like you are, all in one line. I take the coefficients, multiply them together. Negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. Radical 5 times radical 5 is radical 25. And I hope that we know that that radical 25 is the same thing as 5, which means, oh, did I goofy the last one? Because I think I had a 20 there, didn't I? And did I not have it? Was it a negative 20? I feel like I goofed the first one. I don't remember a 40 in here. Okay, well, I apologize. Don't know what I did. I'll have to go back in this video and find out. Well, I'm glad I did this in one line then. It keeps things more organized. Okay, negative 4 times negative 3 is positive 12. Radical 5 times radical 7 is radical 35. 36, radical 35, there we go. Negative 7 times negative 2, that's a positive 14, right? 7 times 2 is 14. And then radical 7 times radical 5 is, again, another radical 35. And then we have, I'm going to do the coefficients, negative 7 times negative 3, it's going to give me a positive 21. And then radical 7 times radical 7 is radical 49. And I hope that you know that that's the same thing as 21 times 7, which is the same thing as 147. I remember there being a negative 20 here, and I subtracted 20, so I got the wrong answer the first time. This just goes to check your work and to Do things carefully. I'm going to have to go back and feel embarrassed about how I got this one wrong the first time. I don't know. I don't know. What was I thinking? What was I thinking? Okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. I keep reviewing it in my head. I must have had a -4 in there. I think it was a -4, and I just times it. I was thinking -4 times 5. That's the only way I can figure out how I got -20. Anyway, so I have to now combine these. Let me combine the middle ones first because that's just neater for me. Um, that's going to be 26, radical 35, and then plus 147 plus 140. That's 187. All right. I think I got it this time. I think that's good. Let me show you number two, just so we are okay. Because number two does start throwing a monkey wrench into things. We got c squared, a variable in there. Well, let me start. I'm going to start with the radical 5c squared times radical 5c squared. Okay, radical 5 c raised to the second power. This little thing here, this thing here is called a caret. All right, you get this by shift six on your keyboard. That says raise the c to the second power. And technically, I probably should, because I'm doing things in one line, I probably should use parentheses for all these, so we know the entire expression is under the under the square root. But for me, I'm just going to start writing these, kind of as I remember them. And I'll just have to remember that this is one whole crazy expression. Okay, let me break this down. What do I have here? What I really have is radical 5 times radical c squared. Right, that's what each one of these pieces is. Radical 5 times radical 5 c squared is the same thing as radical 5 times radical c squared. And then I'm multiplying that by radical 5 times radical c squared. And the thing is I just happen to know that any number squared, and then you take the square root of that, is going to become that number. So what I really have here is radical 5 times c squared times, wait, no, hold on, whoa, times c, right? Times c times radical 5 times c times c. Okay. Well, now what do I have? I need to multiply in there. I need a multiplication symbol in there. I've got negative, this radical 5 times radical 5. What would that be? That'd be radical 25 times c times c. And what's radical 25? Hopefully you're saying, hey, that's 5. 5 times 5 is 25. Therefore, the square root of 25 is 5. Okay. And then what I have, what's c times c? C times c is c squared. So this whole thing boils down to be 5 c squared. And then maybe you can actually see that would totally be true, since any square root times a square root exactly like it is going to be the expression without the square root. Okay, I hope that made sense there for you. What's the next piece? Oh, so now I got to do radical 5 c squared times radical 3. And then I'm going to have to do radical 3 times radical 5 c squared. And find out what that equals, and then I'll have to find what radical 3 times radical 3 is. Okay. I'm going to go for some low-hanging fruit here. Radical 3 times radical 3 is going to be radical 9. It's going to be 3. All right, that's pretty easy. And then this one here, I'm going to have radical 5 times radical c squared, equivalent kind of expression. I'm breaking this into pieces so I can get that by itself. Radical 3, and then what's my next piece? I'm going to combine these two radicals to be radical 15. Radical 15. All right, and then c squared, remember that just becomes c times c. And I could even put the c out in front there if I wanted to. And do c times radical 15. Let's see here. Again, this is going to be radical 3 times radical 5 times radical c squared. And as we've talked about, radical c squared is going to be c, which means I get radical 3 times radical 5 times c. And then I can combine the radicals. They become radical 15. Radical 15 times c. And then I can just combine that to be c radical 15. Aha! Aha! Look at that. It's two of them. It's two of them. When I add them up, I'll have 2 c radical c, right? Okay, so I think I'm ready to do this. I think I'm ready to do this. My first expression I'm going to add here is 5c raised to the second power plus 2 times c radical 15. Right? I can put in the parentheses, or I probably just could have put the 2 out in front there. That either one would have been fine. That's why I wanted you to see that I have 2 of them, so I just put a 2 out in front, and then plus 3, right? Plus 3. There's my answer for this one. Highlight. I like that green. And then highlight. All right. I'm going to leave you to do, 3 and 4 here for sure. Let me see if 6 is somehow more difficult or something. I feel like I'm better off showing you 5 than 6. 5 has got all sorts of squares in there. Was there any? Yeah. I'm going to let you have fun with 6. Let me just show you 5. All right. So 5. I'm going to take this piece and multiply it by that piece. All right. So 2 radical 11 h squared times negative 6 radical 6 radical 11 h squared. I'll find out what that equals. Then I'll take 2 radical 11 h squared. So I took this, multiplied it by that. Now I'm taking this and I'm multiplying it by this. Negative 7 radical 3. And now I got to take the other side, the last piece of this, plus 7 radical 3 times negative 6 radical 11 h to the second, and plus 7 radical 3 times negative 7. Ooh, that'll be interesting. Negative 7 radical 3. All right, now that I've got the 4 pieces, let me take a piece by piece. I can take the coefficients here. I got a 2. I got a negative 6. That makes a negative 12. Not negative 16, negative 12. Mistyping. Maybe that was what I made that one error over there. Miswriting. Okay, so then I have to multiply this thing times this thing. Now, I could just play around and say, hey, and show you that, it'll be this, but remember the shortcut? Anything, how do I put this algebraically? If I ever have any number, call any number x, and I'm multiplying it by radical x, right? So if x is any number, square root of x times square root of x is always just going to be x, okay? All right? You feel how that works? Remember how we had this? The square root of 3 times the square root of 3 is going to be equal to the square root of 9, because 3 times 3 is 9. Well, the square root of 9 just happens to be 3. Same thing happens with other numbers, right? The square root of 6 times the square root of 6, square root of 6 is going to be equal to the square root of 36, and that's just going to equal 6. So anytime you have the same thing under the radical and you're multiplying it by itself, you just get whatever's inside the radical. So I noticed that this, let me highlight it with yellow, is the same thing as this, which means I don't need to do a whole bunch of messing around. I can just say, wait a minute, that's just going to be equal to the straight up expression of 11h squared. All right, I kind of took a shortcut there. And oh my gosh, I don't have this as a math fact very solid in my head. Negative 12 times negative 11, positive 11, isn't it 121? Let me go to my math machine to be the final arbiter of math facts. I'm pretty sure, but, and I should know. I feel somewhat embarrassed that I don't know. 132, look at that. I'm glad I didn't just play around and guess it off memory. 132. Oh, it's 11 times 11. That's 130, 21. Okay. Well, I'm glad I checked. Okay, so it's going to be negative 132. Oop, equal. I need an equal sign here. 132 times h squared. Woo. All right. Sorry, there was a lot of mental heavy lifting for me there. Woo. All right. So 2 times negative 7. I'm just going to multiply the coefficients, the number out in front me, and multiply it out in front. That's going to give me a negative 14. And now I have radical 11h2 times radical 11. I can take the 11 times by the 3, get 33, just h squared. All right. And now I have 7 radical 3 times negative 6 radical 11 h squared. Let's see, 7 times 6 is negative 42. And negative 3 times radical, I'm sorry, not negative 3, radical 3 times radical 11 h squared is going to be radical 33 h squared. Now, one thing I notice about this h squared business. This is going to be the same thing as negative 42 times radical 33 times radical h squared. And h squared is going to be the same thing as h. You can kind of feel how that works because h squared, like, right, you know, this radical x squared is always just going to be x, because what is radical x squared? That's saying radical x times radical x, which we already determined was x, right? Just like if I did radical 3 squared. What's 3 squared? 3 squared is 9. So that would be radical 9, and then the square root of 9 is 3. All right, so just to kind of show you kind of how what's going on here, this just becomes h. This just all turns into h, and I can put that h over here. Right, and I can do the same thing for over here. I can take this h out, this h squared out, and just make that an h over here. All right, simplify things. All right, I'm looking for any other things I can simplify. Oh, I never finished this piece. I never finished this piece of it. And 7 times negative 7 is negative 49. Radical 3 times radical 3 is going to be it's going to be a plain old 3. And 49 times 3, oh, I'm not even going to bother. I could try to do that in my head, but I don't want to. 147. 147. Okay. Oh, and then negative. Don't forget, keep your negatives. All right. I'm just looking for trouble. I'm looking for errors. I'm looking for mistakes I made. All right. I am not seeing anything more I can do, so it's time to combine these things. Are we ready, folks? It's negative 132 times h squared. I can combine these two things because they're on the same radical. Negative 13, no, negative 14, plus negative 42, negative 56, all right, negative 56, h, right, h, square root 33, and then minus 147. Man, that felt like a lot of work. I don't know why that felt like heavy lifting there, but that did feel like some heavy lifting. If it feels like heavy lifting to you, you're in good company. It feels like heavy lifting to me. Right? There's just so many little pieces to think about and to play with and to simplify. And, shoot, there's probably even roots to these things if we set these equal to 0. Let's not even get into that, all right? Let's not give Mr. Brown any ideas. Okay. All right, that's it. I'm going to leave you there. 3, 4, and 6. You're on your own on those. I'm Mr. Salt. I'm done for the day on the weekend. I hope to see you in class.